back to the channel. This week we will be continuing our Ember in the Ashes reviews with Ember in the Ashes Book 3, Reaper at the Gates, by Saba Tahir. If you guys want to catch up on my Ember in the Ashes reviews, I will leave a link to that playlist up in the corner so you guys can rewatch those videos, get my general thoughts on those specific books and the series in general, and then come back and watch this video. As always, format for the book review, summary of the story, pros, cons, and then my final thought and rating of the book. With all that out of the way, let's get started. So with the Nightbringer very close to his final victory to reconstruct the star and free the Jinn, Laia, Darren, and the rest of her group need to figure out a way to stop the Jinn from retrieving the last piece of the star. While on her mission, Laia discovers a ton of secrets that change her world. It changes everything that she thought she knew about her family. While Laia is trying to fight the Nightbringer, Elias is fighting the Jinn inside the waiting place as he's struggling to learn to become the soul catcher and to use the magic of the waiting place. As the Nightbringer's final victory approaches, Elias needs to make a choice. Does he stay within the realm of humans and forsake his role as soul catcher, or does he finally embrace his role as the soul catcher and take Shiva's place as the soul catcher to work to move on the souls in the waiting place? While all that's going on, Helene still has to battle Keris. Starts to make trouble for her as she's implementing the final plan to overtake the Empire. Helene needs to keep her sister safe and to defend the future of the Empire from whatever Keris has planned for the Empire and her ambitions. So jumping into the pro section here, we're going to talk about Elias. Elias continues to be my personal favorite character. This book does not change that one bit. Elias' struggle in trying to keep his humanity while he's dealing with the souls is really cool. I think it was a very much needed character development thing, because Elias in Torch Against the Night was still good, but I think he could have been better with some tweaks. But in A Reaper at the Gates, he is full on the best he's been. I love his conflict of him needing to try and separate himself from his humanity in order to fulfill his destiny as the soul catcher. I think this was a really cool idea for the book, and Elias's struggle was really well written, and I really continue to enjoy Elias as a character. Another really cool aspect of Elias's character for this book was his struggle between trying to force himself not to rely on his mask training, but this book he finally has to really lean into it to really perform as the soul catcher, and it's a really cool dynamic that he has to balance. I think this was very much Elias at his best. I think Elias to me works best when he has a lot of moral conflict, and this was a really cool and well-used example of that, where he has to battle his desire to be human, also put it up against his duty as the soul catcher. It's just a really well-written conflict for him that I really enjoyed, and I really just commend Saba Tahir for continuing to make Elias a great character. Since book 1, I've enjoyed his character, and I've only continued to really like his character, and Reaper at the Gates just continues what I love about him. Another really fun part of Elias' story, as he's working to confront the Jinn start to give us a lot more of their background. Now, we had heard a couple of these stories about how the Jinn became trapped within the waiting place. In A Reaper at the Gates, we finally get to see a lot of that, and I really enjoyed that because it gave us a chance to get a deeper understanding about what happened to the Jinn and why they are trapped in these trees in the first place. So I really did enjoy Elias' character for the moral conflict he's going through, but also for this new lore and new story that we learn when he's confronting the Jinn about what's going on with the Nightbringer. Second thing we're going to talk about for the pro section is Helene. Helene was another character that I really enjoyed. She didn't have a whole lot to do in the first book in Ember in the Ashes, but in Torch Against the Night, after she becomes the Blood Strike, that's when her character really gets focus as she continues to hunt Elias. And this book is no different. I really did enjoy Helene as a character in this book, but in this book, her plot is a lot less emotionally driven, and it's a lot more political intrigue, which I did enjoy. throughout this book, Helene has to go up against Keris Vituria and her ambition to take over the Empire from Marcus and install herself on the throne. So I did enjoy the battle of wits that the two of them had to perform against one another in this book, because there's constantly move and counter move between the two. The book does a really good job juxtaposing Helene and Keris as really strong political players in the book. We got Helene and the forces that are loyal to Marcus, and then we got Keris and all of her forces, and there was just a lot of cool political intrigue and political infighting in the two, and I really did overall enjoy Helene's part of the book. The book actually really does a good job at, again, setting the two of them up as rivals, and we kind of see sort of what I noticed, at least. If Helene didn't have such a strong moral compass, she could become just as ruthless as Keris, and there's one conversation within the book that really exemplifies that. So I really did enjoy throwing the two against each other within this book and giving us some really cool moments throughout the entire book. As much as I did enjoy Helene's part of the book, there is one thing I kind of want to talk about, and that is the fact that I think she might work slightly better when she has sort of an emotional stake in the book. Now, don't get me wrong, she's defending her sister and trying to keep her safe, and that's emotional stakes for her to deal with, but I kind of think she works better when she is hunting Elias. Like, I think there's a lot more emotion in that than there necessarily is in her defending her sister. Defending her sister, yes, is a big emotional plot point for her. I think Helene works better as a character when she is dealing with conflict within herself, whereas when she's defending her sister, as noble as that is, she has a straightforward goal. She is not conflicted in any way. And I kind of personally think that she works better as a conflicted character like she was in the first two books. Now, that's not to say that the political intrigue stuff is bad. It's not. I just think Helene works better as a character when she has sort of a moral conflict that she has to deal with during her storyline. Okay, so one character I was harsh on in the other two videos is Laia, but this book, Laia really stood out to me. For the first time, I'm actually going to put her in the pro section. If you've seen any of my other Ember in the Ashes videos, you know I don't love Laia as a character. It's not that she's badly written. I'm just going to say that outright. But I don't think there is a lot of emotional stakes for her, and there's really no conflict that she has to deal with, not internally at least. And that, at least to me, is sort of what I like in a character, whereas they have to deal with a lot of internal conflict. I don't know about anyone else, but I prefer my characters to have a lot of internal conflict. Laia doesn't necessarily have a whole ton of moral conflict, not until this book. I'm not going to spoil the book in case you guys want to read it yourselves. She finds out a lot of information about the past that changes her, and we finally get to see sort of this moral conflict form within her, and I feel like now she's finally come into her own as a character, and okay, yes, she has something we care about. Let's see where this goes. The other thing I really did enjoy about Laia in this book is she's now becoming a leader finally, whereas the first two books she's sort of followed along a lot of the time. Reaper at the Gates, she's finally come into her own and started to step up as a leader, and I think we're finally seeing the character that Laia could have been in the first two books in A Reaper at the Gates. Laia didn't have a whole lot of moral conflict to deal with, which kind of disinterested me in her character. It's not that she's a bad character, I prefer characters with a lot more moral conflict, and I just don't think Laia had a whole lot of conflict for me to latch on to. But now that we've finally gotten Laia to the point where I start to consider her interesting, I just hope the rest of the series can continue that. If you guys have read this series before, please do not spoil it. I want to go in knowing as little as possible. So again, please, no spoilers in the comment section. Okay, so for the one and only point in the con section, it is going to be the lack of the Nightbringer's prominence in this book. The one thing I think that drags this book down, at least for me, again, this is totally subjectively my opinion, I think that the Nightbringer is not used used as much as he should be. Because in A Reaper at the Gates, he's super close to his final goal of freeing the Jinn. We're so close to his goal. Why aren't we inside of his head more, finding out his thoughts about the world and stuff? I don't need anything in depth. I don't think the book needed to cut in between all 4 of those characters, but he only gets 2 focus chapters in A Reaper at the Gates, whereas the 3 of others we follow throughout the book, we flip from chapter to chapter between the 3. I think we should have at least gotten more Nightbringer content. He appears in the book, but he only has, again, 2 focus chapters, which kind of bugs me, because with him only having 2 focus chapters, there's not a whole lot of time to get his backstory and get his general characterization. There's just not a whole lot of time for that. And most of what he does is inside the other character chapters, where he's just randomly popping in and out and doing stuff, and not like giving us a whole lot of time to sort of understand who he is as a character. But when the Nightbringer is actually present in the story, he's cool. We get to see him do some pretty cool stuff, and we get to learn more about him, but it's in the context of him interacting with the other characters and not necessarily us inside of his head and him explaining his worldview to us. I know it's a nitpick, but it's something that I think we had more interaction with Nightbringer. I feel like he would have been a really cool villain. He is still a really cool villain, but I think to make him better, we should have been inside of his head a bit more. Even saying that, what we get from the Nightbringer is really good, and I do really enjoy this book, and Sabathir, again, did amazing writing the Nightbringer as a character for as little as he is inside the story. If the Nightbringer gets a lot of character development in the 4th book, do not spoil it. Please try and leave the comment section spoiler-free. Final thoughts on the book here. Overall, this was another really good entry into the Ember and the Ashes series. I think Elias continued to be a really good character. Helene also continued to be a really good character. And surprisingly, Laia finally got interesting in this book. And I really do commend Sabathir for being able to continue what I enjoyed about Helene and Elias with their moral conflicts, giving Laia some sort of character conflict. So I really did enjoy this book overall, other than the lack of the Nightbringer thing, but even that isn't a big thing, and it doesn't really detract from the book overall. Overall, I really do think this was a very good entry in the series, and I cannot wait to start the 4th book and finish this series up. So I'm going to be giving Sabathir's A Reaper at the Gates an 8.5 out of 10. You know the drill. If you have read the Ember and the Ashes series or have read A Reaper at the Gates, feel free to leave your thoughts about the book and the series in general in the comments, but please leave it spoiler free. That's all I ask. Otherwise, go crazy. If you guys want to rewatch my Ember and the Ashes videos, I have a playlist with all of them. I'll leave a card up there so you guys can go and rewatch those videos and see what I think about the other 2 books. If you guys want to chat with me on social media, my Instagram is Riley Murray Book Reviews. My Twitter is Riley T. Murray. My Facebook also is Riley Murray Book Reviews. My Discord is Riley Murray Book Reviews. I will have everything linked down in the comments, so you guys can go and follow those accounts if you want to. If you enjoyed the video, please do not forget, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you do not miss any videos. That is going to be it for this week. If you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel so you do not miss anything. I will see you guys next week. Till then, have a great weekend, and don't forget, keep on reading.